Tomorrow, on December 14th, 2020, the Electoral College votes for the 2020 presidential election will finally be casted. It turns out that in the United States, the popular vote is not actually what determines the winner of a presidential election. The winner of the presidential election is not just the person with the most votes. The process in the United States is a lot more complicated than that. Basically, the way the Electoral College works is each state has a certain number of electoral college votes designated to them, depending mostly on their population size. Basically, each state has two electoral college votes to begin with. Those correspond with the two senators that each state has, every state in the United States has. But after that, every other electoral college vote that a state gets is based on the number of members that that state has in the House of Representatives. So for example, Texas has 36 members in the House of Representatives. 36 plus 2 is 38, and as a result, Texas has 38 electoral college votes. On the other hand, a state like Wyoming only has one member in the House of Representatives, and 2 plus 1 is 3, and that is why a state like Wyoming only gets 3 electoral college votes. So it's mostly proportional to population size, but not exactly, and as a result of this, smaller states, smaller in terms of population, those states have slightly more representation in the Electoral College in relation to their population. And that is one of the reasons why the Electoral College is a controversial method of deciding the winner of a presidential election. And the result of the Electoral College, what happens as a result of this system being in place, is that sometimes the winner of the presidential election is the person who got less votes. Sometimes the winner of the presidential election does not necessarily get the most number of votes. Two examples of this phenomenon occurring in recent United States history include the 2000 presidential election and the 2016 presidential election, the latter of which took place just 4 years ago. In the 2000 presidential election, that was a very controversial election because it all came down to one state in that election, Florida, and Al Gore was just under the 270 electoral vote mark, so was George Bush. Whoever won the state of Florida would have won the presidential election, and it turned out that George W. Bush, ended up winning the state of Florida by a very small margin, a margin less than 1,000 votes. I believe the actual amount of votes that George W. Bush won by in the end was 537, but basically what happened was a lot of recounts took place in that state after election day, and that went on for like a month. And then the Supreme Court decided at the last minute, right before the electoral votes were actually casted, that there was not enough time to do any more recounts, and the vote count that was there at the time, that was the final vote count. And that had George Bush up by around 537 votes, and that is why he won the state of Florida, and won the he won the 2000 presidential election. Even though Al Gore won the popular vote by thousands of votes, the margin that Al Gore won the popular vote by in the 2000 presidential election wasn't even that small. He won the popular vote pretty easily, but despite that, George Bush won the Electoral College, and that's why he became president on January 20th, 2001. 4 years ago, in 2016, Hillary Clinton got 3 million more votes than Donald Trump did, but Donald Trump won the right states. He won Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, three states that were expected to go to Hillary Clinton easily, but Donald Trump pulled off a surprise victory in those states, and those gave him the electoral college votes he needed to win the 2016 presidential election. And Hillary Clinton, despite having more votes, did not become president on January 20th, 2017. That ended up being Donald Trump. But in this presidential election, nothing like that happened. I'm kind of glad nothing like that happened. I think it would have been very controversial, especially in a political climate like we're currently experiencing, if the popular vote winner was different from the electoral college winner. I think that would have been very controversial, but I'm glad that the electoral college winner and the popular vote winner was the same. And Joe Biden was the winner of both. He won the electoral college quite easily. He won the popular vote quite easily as well. It turns out, in fact, that Joe Biden actually won the Electoral College in this presidential election by the exact same margin that Donald Trump won the Electoral College by 4 years earlier. Joe Biden and Donald Trump basically got the same electoral votes as Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton did 4 years ago, except that 4 years ago it was flipped in relation to now, meaning that in 2016, in 2016, Hillary Clinton got 232 electoral votes, Trump got 306 electoral votes, but this time around, Joe Biden was the one to get 306 electoral votes, and Donald Trump was the one to get only 232 electoral votes. So 2016, the Republican got 306. In 2020, the Democrat got 306. 2016, the Democrat got 232. In 2020, the Republican got 232. So it basically did an exact flip, more or less. Obviously, not every state that voted for Trump 4 years ago voted for Joe Biden this time around. Not every state that voted for Hillary Clinton 4 years ago voted for Donald Trump this time around. Most of the states that voted for one candidate or the other voted for the same candidate this time around. Only a few states flipped from Donald Trump to Joe Biden, and those states were actually enough for Joe Biden to win this presidential election. Those included the states of Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Those five states flipping from Trump to Biden was enough for Joe Biden to be the winner in the Electoral College. Now, technically, Joe Biden isn't actually the winner of the Electoral College yet because those votes still have to be casted tomorrow. Basically, the results on November 3rd aren't really the results that actually matter. The results on election day itself, they're not the ones that actually matter. The results that actually matter are the ones casted by the electors. The electors are the people who cast the Electoral College votes. The 538 electoral votes in the Electoral College, they're not actually just abstract ideas that people vote for. They're actual votes that certain designated electors vote for. Now, these electors, most people don't know who they are, and that is why the Electoral College, that's another reason why the Electoral College is a controversial system, because most of the people that are voting in these elections don't even know who these electors are, but these electors are the ones that actually decide the results of the presidential election. But I believe that basically every state requires by law that the people who are appointed to be electors have to vote in the Electoral College for the candidate that their state voted on, otherwise they are hit with some certain fine. But despite this punishment, some electors in the Electoral College still don't vote for the candidate that they're supposed to. For example, in 2016, many Hillary Clinton electors, many electors that were supposed to vote for Hillary Clinton voted for someone else. Same thing with Donald Trump electors. I believe that one of the electors designated for Donald Trump voted for John Kasich, and then another one voted for Ron Paul. So technically, the electors can vote for whoever they want, but most of the states have laws making sure that they don't vote for a different candidate than what they're supposed to. That way, the people that actually get voted on are the ones that get into power. So if Donald Trump got the most electoral college votes, then the actual electors won't be able to change that. But technically, there is still a way for the results of the election that the American people vote on. There's a way for that to be overridden by the electors, but that does not ever happen because of these laws that are in place, making sure that the electors don't just vote for whoever. And the way that these electors are actually appointed is the electors themselves are appointed based on which candidate wins that specific state. For example, in Texas, since Donald Trump won that state, the 38 electors designated for Donald Trump that are supposed to vote for Donald Trump, they will be the ones that actually cast the electoral college votes in or tomorrow, I guess. But if Joe Biden got more votes in that state than the 38 Joe Biden electors designated for that candidate would instead vote in the electoral college tomorrow. But even though they're supposed to vote for one candidate or the other, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, like I said, these people who don't vote for the candidate they're called faithless electors, and sometimes they vote for a different candidate than what they're supposed to vote for. But this has never overturned the result of an election, at least not in recent history. I don't think it has ever done so in United States history, but definitely not in recent history. There has been a few faithless electors. There were many of those in 2016, but not nearly enough for the results of the 2016 presidential election to be overturned. Now, technically, it is possible for Joe Biden to not emerge as the winner of this presidential election tomorrow, but the chances of that occurring are basically zero, and here's why. Joe Biden's margin of victory in the Electoral College is just too large. Joe Biden has 306 Electoral College votes when you only need 270 in the Electoral College to have a majority, and a majority is what you need to win. Meaning that even if there were 36 faithless electors who were supposed to vote for Joe Biden but voted for someone else, Joe Biden would still have 270 even with those 36 faithless electors, and I know for a fact there's not going to be nearly that many faithless electors in the Electoral College. So I can say with 100% certainty Joe Biden will emerge as the winner of the 2020 presidential election tomorrow.